Let's go with Stan and Neil Show. The Stan and Neil Show. The Stan and Neil Show. The Stan and Neil Show. With Stan and Neil Show.
It is the Stan and Neil Show for Friday. Great to have you on board.
Yeah, he's Stan. I'm Neil. We put a lot of thought into that title. We appreciate you joining us for our fourth show, Stanley. We've got a big show coming up. Not only are we going to talk about the games Saturday and Sunday, college and pro, we got Doug Kezirian, former ESPNer, gambling expert. He and his dog Arthur Vegas, or Vegas Arthur, are going to join us a little later in the show.
I'm really interested to hear what the dog has to say about his best bets for the weekend.
Yeah.
We're also going to look ahead to this weekend's key games in college football and the NFL. And when we finish talking with Doug, we're going to tell our best Vegas stories. You know, they say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Not all the time.
No.
I got a Vegas story that'll break your heart.
You got some news come up over the old interweb. I keep seeing your name. I mean, you're the busiest man in show business. Tell the folks what's going down.
Yeah, I agreed to a deal with FanDuel Sports Network. I'm going to be the Clippers, Los Angeles Clippers studio host for pregame and postgame coming up this NBA season. And also I'm going to be doing a show on FanDuel across their network of affiliates, which will be a daily show. We'll have more details about that as we move forward. But it's really exciting. You know, Neil, when I left ESPN, I said the only thing I wanted to do were things that were really a lot of fun, things that I enjoyed. And so there's obviously this, which was high on my list of priorities because it gives us a chance to work together again and build something really special.
Yep.
And then the Saints, of course, were a labor of love. You know, that's my hometown team. And so getting to host a pregame show for the Saints, that was a dream come true. So I'll be continuing doing that. And then, you know, the reason why I decided to forego the opportunity to continue working at ESPN, you know, if that had worked out, was because I didn't want to move from Los Angeles and I would have had to move to Bristol in order to continue working there. So now I get to stay in Los Angeles and work with the Clippers, who are, you know, hopefully in line for a big season here. And it'll be fun to cover them. And then also the chance to do a show for FanDuel, which I'm going to host. It'll be an hour-long show. And again, more details coming up later. But it was too good to pass up. So I'm really excited about it. It's busy, but I like it that way because, you know, I got a lot to say and a lot of interesting platforms to do it.
It's funny because the job that Stan's detailing that he's going to do for the Clippers is pretty much mirrors the job that I do for the Trailblazers, except I fly up from Los Angeles to Portland to work the games that I work. And again, a labor of love because that was the team I grew up rooting for. And Bill Walton was my favorite player as a kid. And so to be able to be affiliated with something that means so much to you, it's work, but it doesn't feel like work. And I'm telling you, Stan, I've been on an all-time natural high since last Monday in that Neil Young concert, getting baptized by Neil and the Chrome Wheels, then coming and doing the show with you, then flying up to Spokane that night, Hoop Town, doing a little talk for Alliant Insurance Services. Great people up there. Keith Dog set that up. Then I had breakfast with nephew Spencer, senior year, kicking it for Gonzaga soccer.
Okay.
And then I had lunch with Pat Riley.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, my buddy Pat Riley. I've known him since third grade. He's one of my dearest friends.
Stop it. So not the Pat Riley, but just
He's
a
the
Pat
Riley in my life.
I thought you had a great story for us about the Pat Riley, but okay. Respect to your Pat Riley.
There you go.
All right. You want? Oh, well, let's tell the people. Hey, look, if you first of all, we would love for you to follow us here on Twitch. And we'd also like for you to subscribe. There's 3 different levels of subscriptions. Neil, can you tell the people about the different levels of subscriptions?
Yes, look what they've won, Stanley. If you subscribe at one level, you are considered a Hall of Famer. At another level, an All-Pro. And at level 3 is a rookie, but there will be no hazing. You will be applauded for being part of the Stan and Neil show. We're trying to get it going.
All right, and if you're joining us right now on Twitch, which is probably the only way you could join us right now, and you're in the chat, you want to make a comment, ask a question, we'll be referencing the chat throughout the show. and taking some of your comments and some of your questions. But Neil, let's start off with the Thursday night football game.
Yeah.
Bills and Dolphins. The Bills come out with a win at home, but the Dolphins kept it kind of close. What was your big
You know,
picture?
yeah, Stan, that was, the Bills were favored by 12.5, and Miami team looked awful its first two games. Mike McDaniel, the coach, in the hot seat. Josh Allen, red hot to start the season. It had all the makings to be a real snoozer. Turned into a great game. I mean, the Dolphins took that opening drive right down the field, 7-0. The Bills answered right back, then got up 14-7. It wasn't the tush push, but it was an Allen push pass. And I mean, he is in his zone and elevating those all around him. But the Dolphins came back. They had a 16-play drive. So it's tied at 14 at the half. And Tonga Valoa, who's 1-9 against the Bills in his career, all of a sudden he had a lot of people in the survivor pools nervous who would have taken the Bills in this one over the Dolphins. And then anybody who had Miami on the money line was thinking, hey, I may be smarter than I thought. Could they? Would they? Well, third quarter, Buffalo makes it 21-14. Then Tua to Tyreek Hill makes it 21-21. And then there's that penalty on the punt.
Yeah.
Which might have changed that. I don't know. Listen, the Dolphins are going to be backed into their own end zone, but they were going to have the football, and they called a roughing instead of a running into. And the difference between that was first down and not a first down. The Bills took advantage of the set of downs, scored. They're up 28-21, but then here come the Dolphins, and then there go the Dolphins because Tua, picked by Terrell Bernard, he got pressured. He thought he had Jalen Waddle. Bernard jumped the route. It was a hell of a play by the linebackers, what Tua said afterwards. It was a hell of a game, Stan.
Yeah, it really was better than I think most people expected. We've talked about this before. I think most NFL games, unless they're really blowouts, most NFL games come down to, unless a really good team against a really bad team, I should say, they come down to a handful of plays that really dictate the outcome. And the two plays you mentioned, first, Zach Seiler with that roughing the kicker call. I don't think he could have gotten there to block the punt. So it's in the moment, and he's trying to make a play for his team. I get it, but I don't think he had any chance to really get there. And then he didn't go to the side. He went right into the kicker, and it was just an absolute backbreaker because their defense had been getting the ball back, and they were getting productive on offense. And I felt like they were playing good complementary football. They were feeding on each other, and even back at the 3-yard line, they had made a 15-play drive earlier in the game and gone the length of the field. So I don't think they were really worried about that. And then I think with the Terrell Bernard interception, if you remember, Jalen Waddle made like 3 really important plays. He made a 4th down catch, and then he made a couple of 3rd down catches, and they weren't long passes. They were just kind of Tua got the ball out of his hands, got it to Waddle. Waddle picked up the necessary yardage to make the play successful, to get the necessary yardage. So then they get into that situation where he throws the pick, and it looked like he was just staring Waddle down. And Terrell Bernard, playing linebacker, just read it and was able to get the pick. So those 2 plays really changed the entire complexion of the game. And I thought, Mike McDaniel was really under a lot of fire coming into this game because of this early that you mentioned. But I was impressed with the way he got the Dolphins ready to play this game on the road in Buffalo. The Ravens are one of the Super Bowl favorites, and they went in and I thought that Miami gave Buffalo every bit of a game as the Ravens did. Now they didn't make you think they were going to win the game for most of the game the way the Ravens did, but it was a competitive game really throughout. It came down to a couple of plays in the 4th quarter. So, Mike McDaniel, man, it's a curious thing. And he made the playoffs in his first 2 seasons, so he's probably bought himself some goodwill. But the Dolphins, I think if it had been a blowout, maybe he's under a little bit more pressure today than it was because, they look like a competitive NFL football team last night. And, again, it came down to a couple of plays. You look ahead, they got the Jets next week at home. So maybe they get their first win there. Justin Fields banged up for New York. So, and then they go to Carolina, which again is a winnable game for them. So, we could look up and the Dolphins would be 2-3, but we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
I saw people this morning saying that, oh, their season's over. Forget about it. But these guys are professionals and they're still getting paid. And so we'll see if Mike McDaniel can keep them playing competitively, because if they play the way they played last night, they beat a lot of teams in the NFL. They play the way they played last night.
Yeah.
And then you get to the Bills, and go ahead.
Well, I don't know if you saw McDaniel afterwards in the post-game news conference.
No, I didn't.
He looked like he just spent the last 48 hours in the Beta House basement being hazed. But he said he was unfazed, even though he was glazed and dazed. Said the locker room was all in on the process, because you've been hearing a lot about is he losing that locker room.
Yeah.
Falls to 0-3 in the 10th consecutive road loss to the Bills, who now grab their flag and fly it.
Yep. Josh Allen passed Patrick Mahomes for the quickest of 300 touchdowns. That includes regular season and playoffs. And the Bills get to 3-0. But I thought in the second half, the Dolphins gave some teams some good tape to look at when playing Buffalo. Particularly, I thought they were really patient when they were patient on offense, when they didn't try to, hit Tyreek Hill downfield every other play. When they were patient on offense, they were able to move the ball down the field. Buffalo playing a lot of zone, and so they just kind of took what was there. And Tua was efficient, didn't make any mistakes until late. But I think there's some good tape for Bills opponents to watch. Now you got to deal with Josh Allen when the Bills have the ball, and he's playing at a really, really high level. A quarterback rating, I believe, was 134 last night, 3 touchdowns, no picks. He was pretty efficient as well. But the Dolphins were able to get, I believe it was 3 straight 3-and-outs. And so, they did a good job defensively. Look, I still think the Ravens are the best team in the AFC. Are you still going with Buffalo?
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Yeah.
So do you have them winning the Super Bowl, or do you have them? I have the Ravens winning the Super Bowl.
I have the Bills winning the Super Bowl.
Okay. All right. So we look ahead to what the Bills have coming up, and what they got next, Neil?
They got
the Saints a week from Sunday. So they get to rest up, and they're at home as the Saints go to them. So look, maybe the Saints are the team that goes in there and shocks the world. Who knows? We'll see. But I don't like the thought of a rested Buffalo Bills team with a mini bye at home against the Saints. But hey, you line them up and you go in and that positive tape that I told you about, maybe the Saints were looking at that and saying, hey, let's tuck that away, go in, be patient, take what's there, hit Olave underneath, hit Juwan Johnson underneath, throw it out to Kamara, Enough about the Saints, though, because we can eat up the rest of the show if I get going down that highway. But they have the Saints coming up. They have New England at home. They go to Atlanta, and then they go to Carolina. So they should probably be favored in all of those games. I would think the Atlanta game, it'll be interesting to see how much they're favored over Atlanta, because Atlanta looks pretty good so far. And then that leads up to November 2nd when they host the Chiefs. So, they win these next 4, you could see an undefeated Bills team at home taking on the Chiefs in a game that could really help them in terms of AFC supremacy, having already beaten the Ravens. And then you figure if the Chiefs get on a roll, maybe they go in there with 2 losses, who knows? But Buffalo could make a real big statement in the AFC if they just keep rolling the way they are and get into November still undefeated. So, but you never know. From week to week, things change.
Yeah, I don't think the Bills have a turnover this season. So 30 or more points in all 3 of their wins. So they're playing really well. Stan, on the little chat as we put a bow on we're putting a bow on the Bills in Miami right now, right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking over at the chat, and it says, "Will you guys ever have Linda Cohn on from Athletic LT wants to know if we'll have Linda Cohn on to talk about hockey?" And of course, we'll have Linda Cohn on to talk about hockey. But today, we're going into the Wayback Bristol machine to bring out the gambling expert, the man who brought gambling to ESPN, Doug Kezirian, and Doug calls Vegas home. There he is. Long time no see, my friend. Gambling guru Doug Kezirian joins us. We understand Arthur. There's Arthur over the shoulder right there. How you doing,
Neil.
buddy?
Neil, turn the
Just when we
sound
come
on your
on
computer
TV,
down.
he goes down. He was a hit on Sports Center, so your guys' esteemed producer Jeff Anderson thought it'd be a good idea to get him back with his own studio chair, but he's treating this like a hammock, so a little tricky. But good to be with you guys. Obviously fired up for your show and launching it. Exciting. I'm honored to be one of the first few guests. Of course, people like Linda Cohn, of course, move the needle, as we say, much more of a draw. So I'm honored to be here. I know Arthur is his return to television. And no, good to be with you guys. Talk a little point spreads. A lot of interesting games this weekend. And I know you guys were recapping last night's game. The Dolphins got the cover but it's such a Stan, you're absolutely right. All these games with the point spread come down to the final few plays. It's really, really wild.
Yeah. Now, what were Arthur's impressions on Bills Dolphins last night? I'd like to hear from him.
Well, he's a sharp dog player, so he took the points. Things weren't going well early on in the season, but we had a segment every Saturday on SportsCenter. We would do 3 picks for college football. Always the underdog of the week was Arthur's pick, and it's just hysterical that I have graphics of like a studio move, as we called it, with Arthur's headshot and graphics on SportsCenter. I just never thought I'd see the day, but Arthur's a sharp underdog player. He took the Dolphins in the points last night, and he might like the dog there, Neil, in the Civil War.
Yep, we will get to that in just a second. How did you get your start in gambling, Doug?
So much like all of us, we worked in smaller markets before ESPN. It's kind of like the path of a minor league baseball player, as I like to say. So you go single A, double A, triple A kind of thing. And my career randomly just took me to Las Vegas. I was in Iowa, went to Las Vegas in 2005, and I was there 7 years before I got to ESPN in 2012. And when I was in Vegas, there was no Golden Knights, no Raiders, no Aces. Mayweather was fighting at Thomas and Mack even back then. So the local team, if you will, the local beat was betting. So Sunday night show after, we always have our sports show. I was doing betting. I was covering it, talking to sportsbook directors and odds makers. I was talking to professional bettors. I ended up doing a pick of the night on the 11 o'clock news because it was legal and it was part of the fabric of the sports scene in Las Vegas. I was even doing a bad beat here and there if something crazy happened in a big game. And then gradually more teams came to Vegas, and then NASCAR weekend stuff. But betting was always a big part of the scene, and it's obviously a big part of boxing and then also UFC. So it was always part of the day-to-day vernacular of the audience in Las Vegas.
Backbone of the economy there too, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's just interesting. It's the game within the game, as we like to say, right? So when, on the front page of the newspaper on Super Bowl, the Monday after championship weekend is the point spread of the Super Bowl, the props, all this stuff that we now see and we now cover sort of day to day because it's legal in so many states, 40 plus. It's day to day like that in Vegas. And everyone just has a little action on the game. It's kind of like, just whatever. It's what you discuss at dinner parties or whatever. It's part of like I said, the day-to-day in Las Vegas. So I made it my beat, and I had this extra time. So I befriended a lot of betting circles and was able to, again, 2005 when I first moved to Vegas. So I just became very involved in it. I grew up sort of into it a little bit, had all brothers. We all watched sports. So I was always aware of the point spread. I was in leagues in 8th grade. So it wasn't like a complete shock to me when I moved to Vegas. Growing up in LA, I'd make the drive to Vegas, and I would love the sports book more than the casino floor. And so I was always sort of familiar with the point spread and what it meant.
You have a biggest big win story or big loss story?
Yeah. So when I was hosting Daily Wager, which was the show we launched at ESPN, I was able to sort of get a little notoriety, which was this infamous draft prop in 2021. So it was the year, or was it 2021, I think, is when Trevor Lawrence went number 1 overall. And the key is, so the betting market, we've all been programmed like the house always wins, right?
Yep.
Yes, but that really applies to the casino when the math is it's static. It's pretty clean, right? We know the math of a roulette wheel. We know the math of the dice and craps. But the betting market's really tricky when it comes to certain things. Now, games, you knew the Bills were favored. We just didn't know if it was 12 points, 11, 10.5 last night. But when it comes to unique markets like the MVP market, so awards markets, it's really tricky because you're handicapping voters as much as you're handicapping players. And then also the draft. The draft is really tricky because, as you guys know, someone can, Adam Schefter, someone can post a tweet and the entire market will change. We think who's going one. I mean, remember when Trey Lance went high and he was supposed to be Mac Jones and was all over the place?
Yep.
It's very different than the betting market of like Bills Dolphins last night. Within 5 minutes, the Dolphins aren't going to all of a sudden be favored, right? But that's what happens in awards markets or draft markets. So there's a lot of volatility in the draft market, and I was able to find sort of a good value, and it was 100-to-1 long shot that really probably should have been 20-to-1. It was about a safety that was a cornerback, and it was very convoluted. And he ended up getting drafted the first safety, and it's kind of a nuanced bet, but basically the bet won on day 2 of the draft, the second round. And it was 100-to-1 bet. There was value. And when you are in this world, kind of like poker players, you get desensitized to money with poker chips and stuff like that. When you're sports betting, you're looking for value and you're betting a lot, and it's just trying to just generate value and generate profit. So I had a pretty big bet and I ended up winning, close to 300 grand on a 100-to-1 long shot. Now, I've had tickets of other 100-to-1 tickets that did not cash. I had Alyssa Thomas to win the MVP a couple years ago when she was 50-to-1. She should have won, did not. So I've had some close finishes, but it was nice to cash one that was awesome to hit. And when you're at ESPN, as you guys know, you do anything, it's going to generate some buzz. Something like that definitely ruffled some feathers here and there, but over time, people have realized that's what comes with the territory of the betting space.
I'll give you credit because most gamblers are very, very eager to talk about the wins, but they don't mention the losses at all. And so you're just like, wow, this guy, all this guy does is he just wins, like DJ Khaled. All he does is win, But so respect for calling out the losses as well.
Yeah. Well, you're only trying to get value, right? So I've done well in some contests, like tied for 14th a couple years ago at Circa Millions. I did well in the William Hill College Football Contest. I had 2 top 5 finishes. But I've also had other entries that didn't finish in the money and stuff like that. You're just trying to, make the most of it and grind out. That's why half points matter so much. I mean, it's such a racket, and we live in this world, and it's, we try to convey it to the audience. You always want to get the best number, stuff like that. But it really is, part of my job was to disseminate the complex information, right? You want to sort of translate something to the audience and what it means. So, last night, someone's like, who you like? Well, I'm like, I know sharp money, professional money came on the Dolphins plus 12.5. Now the line moved to 11 and then they stopped. The sharp money stopped betting. That's why the line settled at 11. So do you chase the steam or whatever you want to call it at plus 11? Well, professionals aren't betting plus 11. They were betting plus 12.5. Now 12 is kind of a dead number in the NFL, we know, but some games land 11, right? You have those 2-point conversions sometimes. So just the market and the constant movement, futures markets, things like that. The WNBA, the Fever, going into the last round against the Dream, they were 250-to-1 to win the whole thing. Now they're 80-to-1.
Wow.
Can Caitlin Clark come back? Right? You only had to win 2 out of 3 games. Now you got to win 3 out of 5. You're facing the Aces, who are obviously really good. Yep. But that's a crazy, long shot right now at 80-to-1. So these things tend to hit. They don't always hit, but they sometimes hit. But I appreciate it, Stan. I'm certainly try to be as transparent as possible. I think that's really important, but I do think it's important in the betting space to actually have some credibility and actually have been doing this a long time. So, gosh, now I'm doing it 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Why are parlays considered the new lottery?
Because you risk a little to win a lot, right? And they're fun, right? You think you have a chance. It's I don't know if you guys ever watched the old the Netflix documentary on Twitter, sort of the data scientists and the engineers who created Facebook and created Twitter. I'm blanking on the name. It's like the simple something, right?
Is it the social network?
Yeah, the social dilemma, maybe.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, it talked about the juices, the dopamine that runs through your body, right? So when you're scrolling on Twitter or Facebook, you post something you're looking for. It's basically they called it a digital pacifier, and also it's the slot machine concept where you pull a lever and it's the anticipation of
Right.
something. That rush, it gives you sort of a reward, or it's a potential reward is really what
Yeah.
it is. So the lottery, you have a concept is risk a little to win a lot. People go to Vegas not to risk a lot to win a little, right? You don't want to like bet, the don't come or something like that. Whatever these odds are, even close to even money. So parlays are multiple legs that all have to win that can win a lot of money if all of them come through. And then you can adjust them. So let's say Josh Allen's rushing yards, I don't know, 35 yards, right? It's
Okay.
normally around 34 and a half. You can lower the threshold. So you can go 20 yards. Okay. He has to get 20 yards. Tyreek Hill, 50 yards receiving. So there was some stuff going on last night that had like 7 legs, all lower thresholds than would be, 50-50 outcomes, maybe. But then Tua needed 150 yards passing. And he didn't get there, even though he had 34 pass attempts or whatever it was.
Right.
So that was the one leg that didn't get there. So if you lower the thresholds, it's a much more doable, and you have action on the game, right? So the old concept of betting is a $5, whatever you spend on a bucket of beers with buddies, you can take that money and put it on the game and have the similar rush,
Yeah.
similar excitement, similar camaraderie with your buddies. That's the healthy sort of dialogue and use of sports betting. Obviously, like anything, extremes are bad, right?
Right.
Shopaholic,
Yeah.
alcoholic, anything in excessive use is bad, right?
Yeah.
And Van Pelt would always say this. He goes, "I trust, let adults be adults, right? Why do we have a law on this, but not all these other vices, if you will? And trust people to be adults." So that's the whole concept. So the social component, and it's fun to win a lot of money if you risk a little, and then you think the lottery is just random, right? But when you're picking off certain sort of bets, you think your sports acumen comes into play. And that's why people like doing it, because people like watching sports, talking about sports, following sports. So getting a little skin in the game is good or exciting. And I'm all for it when it's a really low amount on these
Yeah.
parlays. Parlays obviously are tough to hit, but a little bit of money to get you through the day or whatever is totally fine.
Yeah, you don't want to drink the 20 buckets of beers with your friends, But see, the thing about the beers is though, once you get past like the third bucket, okay, you're gonna get bloated. There's only so much you can drink. With betting, you can just keep going.
Right. You got games all day, right? And we got the Hawaii bailout game that I know Neil knows about. You always got the late kickoff, and you got Sunday NFL. Last night there was I think a 7:00 tip West Coast, so 10 p.m. Eastern, for the Aces game. So that was a bailout game that started well after Sunday Night Football. But again, it's all part of the culture of the betting space. But again, like anything, you don't do it in excess. If you manage it, it's great. The world has normalized having a couple highballs at dinner after work and things like that.
Yeah.
In Vegas, when I first moved here, it's part of the day to day. People hit the local pubs have a lot of video poker and stuff like that, or people bet big games, TV games. My phone blows up every Monday night, Thursday night, Sunday. It's like, who you like, who you got, all this stuff. And now it's beyond just friends in Vegas because of the legalization. Friends are always like, who do you got? What's the best bet today? I'm bored or something like that.
Yeah, in Vegas, everybody's job depends on gaming because, if you work in a restaurant or a bar or a hotel or anywhere else, getting the gaming going pays everybody.
Well, it's such a travel dependent, right? So there's all these stories like Vegas is dying. In some ways, yes, it's not you can't come to Vegas for a weekend for a couple $100 anymore. Yes, it's a little pricier, but you guys know with the Super Bowl, the city already has the infrastructure to host huge events. It's got all the entertainment in the world, the hotel rooms. And the next morning, I couldn't believe it. One year I was here in college for New Year's. The next morning, it looked like nothing happened the night before. Everything swept clean, all this. So they had all these people out there at night, beer bottles everywhere, and it was clean by 6 a.m. the next day. It's amazing how just rinse and repeat they can do something every weekend with Formula One, NASCAR week, just you name it, NBA stuff. So it's really tailor-made for this kind of stuff. And then you can put a hotel tax and build Allegiant Stadium and do things along those lines where other cities, frankly, don't have that luxury. And just Vegas is conditioned to do all this. And obviously, it's the entertainment capital of the world for a reason.
Well, I got an instant headache when you said Vegas and the next morning. It just, I just got a headache as soon as you said it.
Well, everyone asks me about living here, and I've lived here close to 12 years now because I first lived here and then I've moved back. And I just say, you don't have a Vegas weekend every weekend. That would get a little out of hand.
All right, before we get to some of your NFL picks, I want to ask you. You wrote in the New York Times. I read an article. You wrote that the NFL generates the largest handle, but it's the most challenging sport from which to profit. Explain that thinking.
Yeah, it's great. So the NFL is everybody loves the NFL. And Howie Long said it at his Hall of Fame induction speech back in the day. Baseball's America's pastime, football's America's passion. So it starts with just the fact that we love just the weekly dose of football. We can handle it. It's not every day. And also there's not a lot of turnover, right? Tom Brady was at the Patriots forever. Patrick Mahomes, we know. So we know the skill position players, which I think is accentuated with everybody's involvement in fantasy football. So we all kind of think we know everyone, right? We kind of think we know the teams and everything like that. We just love the NFL. We have our allegiances to teams. And then betting the NFL, people just love to bet football. And it's a double-edged sword in a lot of ways because, you mentioned how these games all come down to the final few plays. It's, the witching hour is really like the sports bettor's bitching hour. It's everything is decided with like a few plays at the end. So that when you win, it's so exhilarating because you were on the verge of losing and then you win the few bets you do. And then when you lose, you think you were oh so close because all these games, very few times are there actual blowouts. So it's the familiarity, right? The dosage of the NFL that it's once a week and you don't have to invest a ton of time, but you still kind of think you know everything because you know the skill position players and whatnot. And then just the emotional roller coaster or reward that you have betting these. But the reason the market's so tight and the reason it's so difficult to win is that they take the biggest bets and it's the margin of error and success. It's just so small, right? A half point matters here and there. So the house has a built-in edge with the VIG, the transaction cost, let's call it. It's like betting red when the house has black and green. They get the little slivers, a little extra percentage points in their favor. And the house is going to grind you to death typically. It's just so hard to offset when there's just complexities of winning a game or covering a point spread because, it's a round object with 2 points. There's a lot of bounces that go every which way and whatnot. So America loves it. It's our passion. We love it. It's just really tough when these games are all decided by kind of not fluky plays, but games that could go either way. But it's also the
All right, let's talk some picks, man. We got you here. We got to get some value out of this in terms of getting some picks. Jets at the Bucks. Bucks favored by 6.5 at home, but you like the Jets. Why?
Yeah, so in sports, the cardinal rule for recreational bettors, the biggest mistake they make is just fixating on what they last saw. Okay. The Jets looked terrible last week. The Bucks with a dramatic win. Baker Mayfield's a gamer, everything. But no one's as good as versus they looked. And so you have to just think the ebb and flow of a season. And week 3 typically is really tricky because teams that look the part kind of relax a little bit, right? We don't always have our best day on air. Some days we kind of not mail it in, but the preparation. You hear about from
Speak
Quinn
for
and
yourself,
Williams.
Doug.
You hear from Quinn and Williams saying, we're not going to mess around. We're going to play better. So the Jets are motivated. I like Tyrod Taylor. He's an experienced veteran, knows what he's doing. He knows the complexities of the position. He's a dual threat. And the Bucks, I mean, look, their O-line's beaten up, but they're coming off 2 emotional wins, right? Against the Falcons, a back and forth game that came down to the wire within the division. Then the Monday night game. So it's a short week. Again, their O-line's banged up. They're laying 6.5. This game last year, they were 2-0. The Broncos went into Tampa and won a blowout. Now, the players all admitted they're like, we weren't ready for this game. So maybe they'll try. I just think the gas tank's running a little empty. Look at the Bills last night. They looked all world off the big win in week 1, all world last week. And the Dolphins had a kitchen sink game. I think we're going to see a similar effort from the Jets in this game. And the Jets are actually 6.5 point dogs. So you're catching 6.5 in Tampa.
All right. I saw a headline on CBS Sports that said the Giants knock off the Chiefs in Jersey. And I thought, wow, those guys are buying Russ Wilson after that almost win in the overtime loss in Dallas. Are you buying that as well?
No, I think the Chiefs will get the W. The question is, will they cover 6 points? This is a tricky game because the Chiefs don't look the part of the dominant Super Bowl team, right? Last year, frankly, they didn't either. Remember, they were escaping all those games. They were below 500 against the spread, and they were just escaping. Now they're 0-2, but both losses were against really good teams with the Eagles and Chargers, right? And that fluke Kelsey tip thing, who knows what happens in that game if that doesn't go Philly's way. So I think the Chiefs are the right side, but I think the point spread's the great equalizer, and I think it's going to be tough because Andrew Thomas is returning. So I think that's going to make the Giants formidable. I wish the Giants were coming off a win and actually escaped Dallas with that game. I think it's a tricky game. Sunday Night Football. I do think the Chiefs get the win. I just think it's a little tough on covering, but Spags will be ready back at MetLife. I think the Chiefs might get the cover here, so I do like them a little bit, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Chiefs lost outright. They don't look smooth and pure on offense just yet.
I don't know, man. 0-3 Chiefs just does show. But
Right.
Russ. I mean, again, you said don't go by what you last saw, but man, Russ threw the rock pretty good last week. He really did. All right. I'm going to ask you about this. I'm not sure I want to know the answer. How are you feeling about the Saints on the road in Seattle? What are they, 7.5-point underdogs, Saints?
Yeah, we brought this up on purpose. The Saints are getting a lot of sharp action. What do I mean by that? The respected bettors, the professional bettors are betting the Saints, and that's why the numbers come down a little bit. They think this line's a little too inflated, that there's value over 7. I mean, we use a term in football, key numbers. That 3 and 7, obviously those are typical margins of victory in the NFL.
Yep.
7's a really, so if you can get over 7.5, the Saints. Now I have Seattle in a couple survivor pools, but I know a guy who models and does all. He said he made the number 3.5. So this feels like an inflated number. Again, Seahawks big win last week in Pittsburgh, coming home, maybe a little flat after an emotional game 1 as well, where the Seahawks against their rival Niners at home, that game came down to the wire. Saints, now they were supposed to be one of the worst teams, but they've looked okay, but they haven't been on the road yet. Rattler hasn't won a game on the road. But I think this Saints team, healthy, they don't have a bunch of depth, but you got Olave and Kamara. Like, I think this team can hang around. I think they're a decent play, plus 7.5. I certainly understand the professional bettors who are back in New Orleans here.
Yeah, I don't bet on the games. I just want the Saints to win every week. You know what I mean? So
yeah. That might be tough this season, but hey,
yeah.
they look better than I thought they would.
Hey, I'm in for the ride, win, lose, or draw, as I always have been my whole life.
Sure.
There was nothing greater really than when the Saints won the Super Bowl, to see the joy that it brought my man Stan. It was just I'll never forget just how happy, genuinely happy he was. And
it was a beautiful time. It was a beautiful
time. It made me root for him. Okay, before we get to Oregon State, I think we wanted to ask about the what about your Vegas team going against Commanders, who are now going to start the GOAT, Mariota.
You got to throw it up, Neil. You got to throw it up.
Yeah, Mariota's the last
man. When
he's the last Heisman favorite to actually win the Heisman. He went wire to wire for the Heisman betting. So he was the last favorite entering the season to actually win the Heisman. I like the Commanders here. Look, they've had 10 days off, and they didn't look good against Green Bay. I think money and some people are going to perceive like Jaden Daniels is out, and there's no way. I think Mariota is going to be just fine in this game. I don't think much of this Raiders team. We obviously saw them lay a giant egg on Monday night. Now, they were playing the Chargers, but again, Geno at $40 million. I just did a rant on this on my own YouTube stuff. Like, you can't pay these average quarterbacks what they're paying them. They either get the elite guys, or you should be journeyman quarterbacks like Mariota. I'd rather pay at a much lower rate, because what happens is you don't have enough money for the rest of your team. Yeah, you pay Crosby,
right,
but look at the offensive line, how terrible it was. Now you can't play Genty in certain downs because he can't pass block. Geno's not a good decision maker. He checks down and things like that. So now you got the early start, short week. Raiders are a little shaky, and you got a Commanders team that has a lot of weapons. Yes, Jaden Daniels isn't there, but this isn't a backup quarterback getting inserted middle of the game. He's practicing with the ones. 10 days to prepare. He's been around the league. Look at all these veteran quarterbacks we've seen look good. Sam Darnold, even Baker Mayfield, right? He had a resurgence. We've had Jake Browning look the part for sure. So much of quarterbacking nowadays is mental, right? The complexities of facing defenses. Even Bryce Young got better. He's not a veteran, but he got better when he took a step on the bench and then came back. So these veteran quarterbacks who've been around, have evolved from the intellectual component, are just much better, glorified game managers. So I think it's a short number for Raiders. Again, short week, travel, not the best team. I think the Commanders will be ready. I think have more in the gas tank too. And I think even with Mariota and no Jaden Daniels, I think that's the right side at -3.
Yeah, because I think Mariota physically, you don't have to alter the game plan much. Mariota can do
Good
a
point.
lot of the stuff that Jaden Daniels can do. Maybe not at the same level, but you don't have to drastically change the playbook.
Well, it's why the Ravens had Tyler Huntley forever behind
Right,
Lamar.
yeah.
Not that he's as good, but you don't have to completely change everything. You just sort of take a, in this case, it's Jaden Daniels light or 2.0, whatever you want to call it.
Exactly. All right, Neil.
All right, listen, the Civil War or the rivalry game or whatever you want to call it, it's Oregon State. The Ducks, I think, are favored by 5 touchdowns, 34.5. Your thoughts, Doug, on that number?
So I liked the Beavers plus 35.5. Okay. So you got to get extra over 5 touchdowns. Now it's been bet down today. So some professional respected money has come on the underdog here. And it's about, so much of betting, in case you couldn't, it's so much of it is playing amateur psychologist, right? Like, what's the mindset of this Oregon team? Last week, I had the under because I thought Oregon was going to Northwestern, early kick, just wanted to get in, get out, get back home, and get that stupid game with Northwestern over with. Now, I know this is a rivalry game, but the Ducks are going to Happy Valley next week, whiteout game at night. Penn State, obviously. So Oregon State has been horrible this year. They're 0-3, 0-3 against the spread, but they've backdoor covered or at least put up some points late that Malik Murphy stays in the game even when they're getting blown out. He's the quarterback that transferred from Duke. I think Dan Lanning, unless he's in a war of words like he was with Mike Gundy, I don't think he needs to drop a 50 burger. I think he just, like last year, they won by exactly 35 points. Last year, they didn't beat anyone by over 35 points. I think at some point, the second and third stringers are going to be in. He just wants to get to next week healthy with a comfortable win. When it was 35.5, it's a lot. So I wouldn't bet, I'd wait to bet Oregon State, maybe second half. I think Oregon's going to crush them early because Oregon State's bad. But, they gave up 600 yards of offense to Texas Tech last week. So I think the Ducks can do something similar. But I'd be careful laying the 5 touchdowns here. I think 35, if it gets back up to 35.5, that's a little too much. But again, we're playing amateur psychologists. We're not really breaking down X's and O's. It's all about, how much does Oregon want to step on the gas because they're a far superior team.
All right, so Doug, before we let you go,
Oregon State game I went to 1983 0-0. They called it the Toilet Bowl. It was the last tie in college football because the people with power said we can never sit through another game like that. Apocalyptic rain, 0-0. We have to institute an overtime rule, and that's the last Oregon State game I've gone to.
you stayed for the whole game?
Oh yeah.
Were you out in the rain?
Oh yeah. There
Okay.
were 17 people at that game, and I was one of them.
You didn't go to a suite or
No,
call one of your. Because I remember I remember you taking the private jet to Oregon games from L.A. So
that was after I was a made man. This is
Heisman.
I was an Animal House student back then.
Okay. Hey, wait, Doug, before we let you go, I always want to ask you about this. So Super Bowl, you get a lot of prop bets, right? Including sometimes I've seen prop bet on the national anthem. Okay, about how long the national anthem goes. So what's to stop somebody singing the national anthem from taking the over and then going, home of the brave, brave,
Well, you would.
Brave. I said brave. Brave. Hey. What stops somebody from doing that?
You would think that the person selected to sing would not need money that badly. They'd be established in their careers. But we also thought that about some NBA players, and there's been some funny business going on with all that. So everyone's had to rethink things with what's going on with baseball and basketball, and who knows, maybe there'll be an artist or pop star that needs to kind of pay some bills and cook the books that way. But it is wild. But yes, there's more so people eavesdrop. I know a professional bettor who sat outside the stadium a couple days before and would time the dress rehearsals. Yeah.
Oh,
And do it and gave out an alert and stuff. There's always angles to everything. Obviously, things have evolved over the years and with technology and stuff, but I've heard some crazy. I'll give you this. Back in the day, I think 80s, maybe 90s, there was one NBA clock operator. I won't tell the team. I know the team, but would basically they were in on like over the bets on the over. They would stop the second every now and then, like during the game.
yeah.
So basically just adding a second here and there every like 30 seconds. And so they're extending the game basically. Or if the ball, goes through the hoop, to stop it first. So off and on. And that
Wow.
lengthened the game. Now, I don't know if they made money or not, but basically there's things like that have gone on over the years, right?
Yeah.
Just like Wall Street has had insider trading and things like that. You don't shut down the stock market. You just, clamp down on some of the funny business and stiffer penalties. But things like that have always gone on. There's always workarounds. I'll never forget on a Friday when I was doing Daily Wager, my boss pointed this out. It's because betting was recently legal, and it was Trevor Lawrence and the Jags were playing at the Chargers. And on Friday, the line moved from in one direction in favor of the Jags. And then 20 minutes later, I think Schefter tweets out that Justin Herbert's not going to play.
Wow.
So the betting market knew before Schefter did, which says something. So there's always going to be information circling, whether it's the training room and whatnot. But that's the that happens in Wall Street as well. Stocks and early, the Beaks report and all sorts of things along those lines.
Yeah.
Doug, this has been great, man. It's been educational.
Man,
it's been entertaining. It's great to see you. You're one of the good dudes, and we'd love to have you back. Depending on how your picks go, of course, because you are now on the record, and we want winners.
All right.
As you should. No, look, it was an honor. Seriously, congrats on the new launch. Loved, hanging with you guys. You guys are legends. Stan, I always appreciated the fact that I got to share a desk with you a few times on the LA Sports Center set, but awesome being with you guys, and congrats. You have the right vibe. Neil, I know you were talking about your CDs the other day on the show. That's the way it should be. The authenticity of the broadcast is really key with all of this. That's what I've been told with the home studios and things like that. So best of luck to you guys, and I appreciate the time.
All right, Doug. Thank you, man.
Thank you, brother.
All right, Neil.
Stanley, you got a gambling story for us?
Yeah, I don't have many because I'm not a big player. As a matter of fact, this story is about the last actual bet that I made on a sporting event. It was 2006. I haven't bet on any sports at all since 2006, and it was Washington. They weren't before they were the Commanders. They're playing the Saints at home in New Orleans. Okay, now I'm in Vegas at the time. Okay, and so I need a place to go watch the game. I never miss a Saints game, so I need a place to watch the game. So it's week 15 in 2006, playing Washington at the Superdome. So in order to get to the sports book to watch the game at New York, they walk you. I'm sorry. In order to get to the ESPN zone at New York, you had to walk through the sports book. So the Saints had just beaten the Cowboys 42-17 in Dallas the week before. So it's the season of the Gleason punt. It's the first year back in the Superdome after Katrina. A lot of emotion going for them. If they win this game, they win the NFC South. Okay, Washington is 4-9 at the time, and the Saints are 9-4. Okay, so I'm thinking, man, they're going to destroy Washington after what they did to Dallas the week before. They're at home. Fans are going to be charged up. They can win the division. They're going to crush them. So I go by the sports book, and I'm like, I'm not a big gambler, but I want to have a good time while I'm here. I tell you, I don't want all Vegas's money. Okay, so I'll just put 500 down. I would have bet my house if I wasn't disciplined. Right, I was that sure the Saints were going to win. I was that sure, but I said, 500 is enough. That's enough. I can have a good weekend. Go back home. Okay, They lost 16-10. Saints were favored by 6. They lost the game outright, 16-10. And I mean, Drew Brees looked like, just ordinary quarterback. And I felt personally offended. Like they did it because I bet, like it was a warning to me, don't do that. You know what I mean? Like I felt personally offended. I don't know if people who bet a lot get that feeling because they have a lot of bets, but I don't. I hardly ever bet. And so I just felt personally offended by that. And so I will never be as sure of anybody winning as I was of the Saints winning that game. And so I said, you know what? They lost that game. I don't know if this is for me. I don't have the analytical skill that it takes to make it done. And I hate losing at anything. At anything. How about you? I bet you had to sort through several stories to find the best one.
Yeah, I've got a few of them. I used to be deep into the gambling pool as a player, as a runner, as a little junior bookie, and it's exhausting. I mean, it's basically a full-time job if you intend to be a serious at it. Like you listen to Doug Kezirian and know there's a guy who knows it, who studies it, who could, who it's a job for him. And, and I just, when I got married or when I met my wife 17 years ago and I was still had my feet in the pool, so to speak, I thought, you know what, this is not going to end well for me if I continue to do this. And so I kind of gave it up cold. I kind of gave it up cold turkey. And the good thing is in California, you can't bet on your phone.
Right.
Because that would be problematic for me too. But I still
wait. I don't think. Do you have a phone with the capability to actually place bets? Because last check, I remember you had a flip phone longer than anybody.
Well, I had no phone. I had no phone longer than anybody until I met my wife to be, and she said, "If you want to date me, you've got to get a phone." So then I got a flip phone. And she wondered why my texts were so short. And I'm like, because, man, you got to hit that button every time like that. So
I just remember being in the studio one night and you whipped out the flip phone. And I'm like, what? What is that?
Right. Trendsetter.
Yeah. Like the CDs, man. March to the beat of your own drummer.
Right.
I feel you.
So anyhow, I do bet on the Super Bowl, though, on occasion. I know this gal who bets like anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000 on the Super Bowl.
What?
Okay. And she's like 18-2, 14-2, 15-2 over the last 16, 17, 20 years. I mean, you can do the math.
Is she really wealthy?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
and even wealthier after this gets done because she keeps winning. And when you bet that amount, when you get paid, they give you like a little suitcase. That's where your cash is. When you got to walk out with money, with that big guess. So the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, I've called her on, Super Bowl week and just said, who are we rooting for?
Okay.
And then she'll say, we're rooting for this team. So on the Super Bowl, I think I'm like 3 for 3. And a couple of years ago when it was the Chiefs and the 49ers, she said, bet the Chiefs. And I'm like, God, I don't want the Chiefs to win. I'm not doing it. And that's when you let your emotion get the best of you.
Yeah.
And that's a killer in gambling. You've got to remove all emotion. I love the Saints. I love the Ducks, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It's all analytics and it's all the numbers don't lie. And you got to keep your heart out of it. But anyhow, the Super Bowl has been good to me lately.
Very, very good to you.
Yes.
All right, let's take a look at some of these other NFL games this week and talk about some games that have caught our interest. I'm gonna tell you, Rams, Eagles.
Yeah.
That Rams defense is no joke, man. I really, really want to see how that one plays out because I got a feeling the Rams can go in there and get it done.
Well, they're both 2-0. It's a rematch for the playoffs last year, won by the Eagles, and everyone's talking Eagles and Packers. Rams aren't getting a lot of love, and they may be going to Philadelphia looking for some love in the city of brotherly love. And Saquon Barkley, though, they're going to have to stop him because remember last year he ran for about 500 yards in 2 games against the Rams.
Yep. How about Cardinals and 49ers? Both teams 2-0. The Cardinals, maybe a surprise 2-0 team, and the 49ers they've dealt with a rash of injuries. But they're still 2-0. Mac Jones going to go again. Mac Jones looked pretty good against the Saints last week. Kyler Murray has been doing what it takes to win games. So that's an interesting matchup. You know, NFC West really pretty good right now with 3 2-0 teams.
I like the 49ers in that game despite the injuries. The game that I'm looking at, Stan, is the Lions at the Ravens.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too.
That's Monday night. That's going to be a big one for Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. You've got the top 2 teams in points per game. Ravens averaging 40.5 and the Lions averaging 32.5, which so you immediately think we're talking about gambling. Oh, I'm betting the over on that one. And for sure that game will go under.
Yeah. But and the more interesting thing, no matter what happens, either the Lions or the Ravens, both in, you know, the small group of teams that people think have legitimate chances at the Super Bowl, or I should say the best chance at the Super Bowl, one of them is going to be 1-2 after that game and really be behind the 8 ball in terms of what they expected versus what has happened so far. All right, how about some college games? Tulane, okay, the Green Wave going into Mississippi. I think this game is going to be closer than people think. Tulane is really, really good. I mean, there's already talk I saw this week by John Summerall, their coach, probably winding up with an SEC job at some point. I believe Lane Kiffin was the one who said it. But Tulane's really, really good, and I think they're going to go in and they got a chance to win that game against Mississippi. Green Wave 3-0 and not ranked, which I think is really, really an oversight because they're a really good team. So we'll see how they do at number 13 Mississippi Saturday 12:30. That game's on ESPN.
Well, you know, listen, I'm all on the Oregon State game. That's really where my focus is, and it's interesting. I did a little reading up on this, and even I didn't know this, and we got a picture of it. But you know, so this game started in 1894.
Okay,
and then it was called the Oregon Classic. And then in 1929, it became the Civil War. A couple of years back, it got rebranded the rivalry game. So, you know, they play for this thing, Stan, called the Platypus Trophy. It was designed, it's half duck, half beaver, and it was carved by a U of O student in 1959. And then the Platypus Trophy got kind of lost, and they didn't know what happened to it. And in 2005, they found it in like there it is. They found it in like a janitor's closet at Mac Court. Mac Court's the old basketball arena on campus. Okay. So the team started exchanging it again in 2007, but it hasn't been a real consistent thing. Like Dan Lanning just heard about it recently. Like, well, we're doing that. We're playing for this trophy. Okay. But ESPN Game Day has sent Ryan McGee out to Eugene and Corvallis to do a story on the platypus. And you know what a great writer Ryan is and a great storyteller.
Yep.
So I'm really excited to see what he puts together on the history of that game. And I got to give a shout out to John Canzano, who's a great writer on Substack. Yeah, for a lot of the facts I just threw out there about the Oregon State game. So that's the one that I'm all into, as long as it doesn't turn out like 1983.
So let me ask you this: is a platypus a crossbreed of a duck and a beaver? Is that what a platypus really is?
It is for our intent and purposes.
But I mean, like biologically, in terms of the actual animal.
That's a great question, and one that I can't answer.
All right, let's get to work on that, because I'm going to come back to that on Tuesday, and I expect you to have done your homework.
All righty.
Okay. LSU has Southeastern Louisiana. Southeastern Louisiana, good team. Shout out to all the folks in Hammond. But LSU's offense needs to get back on track, so I figure they're going to really focus in, lock in, and Tigers are going to get to 4-0 at 3-0 going into this game. And how about Michigan State and USC? Michigan State 3-0, unranked. USC number 25 at 3-0 as well. What are you thinking there?
Well, USC, listen, they're playing for what's his name, the head coach's life, and they brought in Rex Ryan's brother. Rob Ryan is now running the defense there.
Yeah,
defense has been where their problem has been, and They got a great coordinator too from UCLA who they're talking about. UCLA's talking about Anthony Lynn's kid,
Yep.
as being maybe the next coach at UCLA. So they're under a lot of pressure at USC. So they've responded thus far. But listen, this is early in the season now. Everybody's first 3 games mostly are not all that. There are some marquee matchups, but this is a good game. I would think USC could beat Michigan State though.
Yeah. I would think so too, especially at home. Indiana and Illinois, number 9 Illini against the number 19 Hoosiers. That game 4:30 on NBC and Peacock. So good rank battle there. And then Florida's gauntlet continues. They have to go to Miami. I mean, Florida threw 5 picks against LSU and really crushed themselves in that game. But now they have to go on the road to Miami. And the Canes would love to put it on the Gators, especially for recruiting purposes, because Miami has, I think I saw Greg, they have like all of the top 20 receivers in the country coming to visit this week. And, recruiting down there is always a big deal for Florida State, and Miami for the top recruits. So I know the Canes would love to put it on. And Billy Napier, man, he got the loss at LSU last week, and now they got to go to Miami this week. And there have been a lot of calls for his job so far. So he's got to get his team up and ready to play. That game Saturday, 4:30 Eastern on ABC. Or is that 4:30 Pacific? I think my phone does Pacific time. It's been programmed. 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern on ABC. So that's a night game there. What else you got?
Well, I mean, I think it's time to wrap it up, Stanley. But we want to give a shout out to Clayton Kershaw. Announced his retirement after 18 seasons with the Dodgers. He's pitching tonight at Dodger Stadium, which is a great place to be if you can get phased in like Star Trek and phased out, or otherwise it's a 15-hour trip to get in and a 20-hour trip to get out of Dodger Stadium. But Clayton Kershaw's been nothing but a pro's pro. He's one of the 3-4 best pitchers of this century. Verlander, Kershaw, Scherzer, maybe Zach Greinke, lefty. He's all-time top 5, top 10 lefties all-time. So Clay, and he's a good dude. Does a lot of philanthropic work, and he's been a great member of the community in Los Angeles. So he's an easy guy to root for. I got to interview him once, and he was a hell of a nice guy. And that's what happened when we get into this thing that Stan and I used to do with ESPN. I think that's the thing when you end up meeting people that you didn't know before, and they end up being really, really cool. You end up kind of we're not supposed to root, but in the back of your mind, like, I'm rooting for that guy to do good because he's a good dude. And so Clayton Kershaw, good on you, and hope it goes the way you want for the rest of the regular season and the postseason as well. Yeah,
his philanthropy extends globally. I mean, he's done a lot of things internationally with his foundation, and as you mentioned, been a great player. So he's going to look for the storybook finish, with the Dodgers, try to get it. The Jerome Bettis go out on top, with a championship. So, all right. Hey, man, we'll have a great weekend. Good luck to your Ducks. I don't think they need much of it.
Well, good luck to LSU, and the feeling is the similar feeling right there. I don't think they're going to need a lot of luck on that one. Yeah. We'll be back on Tuesday. Remember, join up. We appreciate you chatting us up and all that. And we're excited for the weekend, and we're excited for the future of this program.
Absolutely. All right. We'll see you on Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in.
Let's go. How's it? Do you know what time it is? Let's go! The Stan and Neil Show. 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 With Stan, Stan, he's the man. And who's Stan's biggest fan? Well, it's Neil. And Neil, he keeps it real. And that's why Neil's the deal. Stan and Neil back together again, spreading the love with all their old friends. Let's go! Stan and Neil. and Neil Show, the Stan 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 and Neil Show.
Yeah. All right, let me hear it all back. See what we got so far.
So shout out to Coach D for the jingle, the Stan and Neil jingle.